The warmth of the blankets wrapped around you like a soft embrace, and Keiko's steady heartbeat beneath you was the only sound in the room. His arms were draped lazily around you, his feathers curling in and around the both of you, as if protecting you from the world outside. You'd been with Keigo for 3 years now. 3 years filled of laughter and love and a bond that you thought would last forever. You had no reason to doubt him, no reason to question the security of his affection. Everything had been perfect between the two of you. He was your home, your safety, the person who always knew how to make you smile even in your darkest moments. Even if he was a bit of a dork sometimes, you loved him with all your heart. You had you had known he felt the same way. Keigo had always been unpredictable, but not in a way that made you uneasy. His flirtatiousness, his charm, his big heart, sometimes clueless nature, was all just a part of what made him Keigo. At least, that's what you had thought. The soft morning light filtered through the cracks in the curtains as you slowly stirred awake. The feeling of Keigo's chest rising and falling under your cheek was comforting. But as your fingers slid against the sheets, you realized your phone wasn't there. It wasn't where you usually were keeping it. Without much thought, you reached over and grabbed the first device you found on your nightstand, just assuming it was yours. The screen lit up as you tapped it, expecting to see a notification, maybe some text from your work or your friends, but it wasn't your phone. It was Keiko's. You blinked, confused for a moment. His phone was always unlocked. He never bothered to hide it or keep it away from you, even with his hero life. A smile tugged at your lips. You ran your thumb across the screen, but your breath hitched when you saw the message notification sitting there at the top of the screen. From a lady named Mirko. Had a blast last night. You dork. See you later. H. The message read. A lump formed in your throat and your grip on your phone tightened. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Your mind raced, trying to process the words in front of you. Mirko? It felt like the warmth from Keigo's body beside you had vanished. His soft breathing was so calm but so oblivious. But your pulse was pounding in your ears. Your thoughts were spiraling. You'd always known Mirko was close to Keigo, but you never once thought their relationship was anything more than a strong friendship. They were heroes together, after all. And you'd seen them as a team countless times, but this felt different for some reason. Had a blast last night. The words echoed in your mind like a broken record. You could feel the jealousy and hurt creeping up on you like a shadow. They were slowly curling around your heart. Suddenly, the weight of his arm had felt too heavy around you. The bed, which had once been a safe haven, now felt cold. And you could no longer ignore the sting in your chest, the pit forming within your stomach. Keigo's phone vibrated in your hand, pulling you from your spiraling thoughts. A second message followed the first, and you couldn't stop yourself from reading it. It was from her again, a playful message that only made the knot in your stomach tighten. Mirko, you still owe me dinner, idiot. Don't even think you're getting out of it. The message read. Your vision blurred as you reread it, trying to ignore the sharp pang of betrayal that seemed to reverberate through your chest. You couldn't help but wonder, was this just friendly banter, or was this something deeper? Were you a fool for not seeing the signs? Had Keigo really been hiding something from you all this time? You felt your fingers tremble as you scrolled through more of the conversation, but you froze when you saw a picture. It was blurry, but unmistakably it was Keigo and Mirko smiling together, their bodies close and their faces pressed up against each other, as if the moment was just for them. It looked so innocent at first glance, but the closeness and the way their glance lingered in a way that made it feel like it wasn't so platonic. Their bodies were touching, and it made your heart sink further. And then, just as quickly as your thoughts snapped to the present, to the man who was lying beside you, your Keigo. The person you had built a life with, a future with, the one who had always promised you he would never lie, never hide anything. Yet here you were, looking at something that made you question everything. Your breath became shallow as you glanced to him, your heart hammering in your chest. The man you loved, the man you trusted with everything, was lying to you, right next to you. But was he really? You felt the weight of your phone grow, heavy in your hands. Your mind was racing with 1,000 questions, but you didn't know what to ask. You had to know. You had to confront him, but fear gripped you, making it difficult to move. What if it was nothing? What if you were just overthinking things, but then again, what if you weren't? Keiko shifted beside you, his feathers rustling slightly as he groggily stretched, a soft groan escaping his lips as he slowly woke. His golden eyes flickered open, blinking lazily as he looked out at you. Morning, babe, he murmured, his voice thick with sleep. He froze, heart pounding as he looked into his eyes, searching for any signs of guilt, of deception. His warm smile only made the storm in your chest more chaotic. Morning, he whispered, his voice barely a sound. Kayla didn't seem to notice the unease in your tone, though he leaned forward, brushing a kiss against your forehead before settling back down, his wings curling protectively around the both of you. You couldn't relax. Your mind was too loud and full of questions, of doubt. What now? Your fingers still gripped his phone, your thumb hovering over the screen, but your next words caught him off guard as you stared at him. The air in the room felt thick with tension. You knew that whatever happened next would change everything. But you couldn't bring yourself to ask. The silence began to stretch on, and you knew the truth was waiting. The question was, would you have the courage to face it? But Keiko just sighed in contentment, closing his eyes once more. You didn't know what decision to make. So you didn't do anything. The day stretched on endlessly, each hour passing, leaving you to more tangled in your own thoughts. You didn't know what to do. You didn't know how to confront Keiko, or even if you should confront Keiko at all. The messages from America were played in your mind over and over again, each one cutting deeper than the last. The picture, the way Keiko looked at her, the way she looked at him, made your stomach turn in a way you didn't even know was possible. It was a clear, cold day where the sky was cloudless, but the air still carried a bite to it. You'd left the apartment in a daze, stepping out and away from the place you'd once considered home, needing to clear your head, needing to distance yourself from everything that was now clouded by uncertainty. But as the hours went on, the same coldness you felt in your chest began to spread to every corner of your body. The longer you stayed away from Keiko, the more you questioned whether you'd made a mistake by leaving in the first place. The ache in your chest became almost unbearable, the constant reminder of a betrayal you had yet to address. You had stayed out longer than you had actually meant to, not really knowing how to actually face him when he came back. But what would you say? How would you confront him without the weight of doubt inside you tearing you from the inside out? By the time the sun dripped, you found yourself walking aimlessly, not really sure where you were going, but trying to avoid going back home. The feeling of the phone, Keiko's phone, still in your hand. Well, it felt like it was. The weight of it was still there, as if it too understood the distance between you and the man. You thought you knew. Finally, as the evening settled into the quiet hum of the city life, you began to hear buzzing. Your phone. The familiar sound was like a jolt to your system, and it kind of just bounced you out of the daze you had been in for hours. You hesitated before unlocking it. The name that appeared on the screen made your throat tighten. Keigo, you stood at the message for a long time, your thumb hovering over the screen. The message read, "Where are you? You didn't come home. Babe, I'm getting worried. Talk to me, please." The sincerity in his words only made your heart ache, your chest grow heavier. He didn't know what was coming. Didn't know you'd been avoiding him for hours. Was he worried? Was he guilty? The question gnawed at you, tearing at the fabric of the trust that you once thought you had in him. You had no answer. Not yet. You turned the phone down, not sure if you could even bring yourself to reply. Keiko would find you. He was a pro after all. He could track you down, but with little more than a flick of his wings and his sharp eyes. But that meant that soon you'd have to face him. You'd have to face the truth, and whatever it turned out to be. But still, you couldn't bring yourself to respond. The next morning, you woke up with a nagging feeling in Keigo's presence hanging in the air. The distance you'd put between the two of you didn't feel like enough. Your phone buzzed again. This time it was a call. You stared at it for a few moments. The weight of it bearing down on you, you could ignore him forever. So with a shaky breath, you finally answered. "Babe?" His voice was gentle, but you could hear the edge of concern. Where are you? I've been calling you for hours. I don't understand what's going on." The words felt heavy in your throat. How could you explain everything you'd seen without sounding like you were overreacting? How could you confront him without shattering what little trust you had left? I just need some time to think," you said quietly. "I'm not sure how to talk to you right now." The silence was deafening. The lack of his usual playful tone only made the tension between the two of you worse. You could hear him take a big, deep breath. "Please," he started, his voice soft, almost pleading. "Whatever it is, we can talk, but I need to know what's wrong. I've never seen you like this before. Are you mad at me? Did I do something?" You squeezed your eyes shut, the pain cutting deep. Did I do something? That simple question was like a slap in the face. Did he honestly not know he had been so wrapped up in his own life that he didn't realize the cracks that were forming in your relationship? You took a breath, trying to steady yourself. "I saw your messages, Keiko," you said, your voice small. "And that picture with Mirko." You could practically feel the tension shift on the other end of the line. Keiko was quiet, too quiet, as if he was trying to process what you had just said. Your heart thudded painfully in your chest as you waited for him to give any kind of response. I can explain," he said, his voice more urgent. "It's not what you think." "Then what is it?" The frustration, the hurt, it all bubbled up inside of you, and you couldn't hold it back any longer. "What do you mean it's not what it... What do you..." You couldn't even get the words out. You were so frustrated. "You and Mirko, there's something going on, Keigo. I saw the way you looked at each other in that picture. It wasn't just some friendly thing. It felt personal." There was a long silence. You held onto your breath and the weight of every passing second. "Can we meet?" Keigo asked. "Finally. Please, let me explain it to you in person. I can't let you think it's something it's not." You clenched your jaw, fighting the tears that were threatening to spill over. You didn't want to see him. You didn't want to hear him try to explain everything away. But you needed an answer from the man you had fallen so madly in love with. You needed the truth. "Fine," you said, your voice shaky. "I'll meet you, but you better be honest with me, Keigo, or this is over." It didn't take long before he found you. You didn't know how he had tracked you down, but there he was, standing in front of you, his golden eyes filled with regret and guilt. His wings were folded tightly behind him. His usual bright demeanor was shadowed with worry. Keigo stopped towards you, slowly, as if afraid you might pull away. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. I should have been honest from the start. Where you saw it's not what you think. I should have told you about her. He met his gaze, heart still heavy, but your patience was wearing thin. Then tell me, Keigo, you said, your voice trembling. Tell me everything. To be continued.